What is?
Well, I wanted to buy one of my adult art magazines.
Remember the wild laughs, the shady deals, and the unforgettable catchphrases of Only Fools and Horses? It's been over 40 years. But what really happened to the legendary cast? From secret heartbreaks to stunning comebacks, tragic losses to unexpected Hollywood turns, their real lives were even crazier than the show. Buckle up. This isn't just nostalgia. It's a roller coaster of fame, fate, and everything in between. David Jason as Del Boy Trotter. He made us laugh till we cried with just a smirk and a slick, lovely jubbly. But behind Del Boy's cheeky charm was David Jason, Britain's comedy king who once nearly lost it all. Born in 1940, he was 41 when he stepped into the sheepskin coat and made TV history. The role turned him into a national treasure, but fame came at a painful price. In 2004, an on-set accident crushed his spine and nearly ended his career. Rumors swirled, pressure mounted, and after 2 failed marriages, Jason seemed on the verge of collapse. But just like Del Boy, he always had one more comeback left. He roared back as Detective Jack Frost, won a BAFTA, and later became a dad for the first time at 61. "I spent my life making people laugh," he once said. "Now I just want someone who makes me laugh back." In 2023, he was hospitalized for heart issues, but still sharp, still writing, and still showing up for fans. Today at 85, he lives peacefully with his wife Jill and daughter in Buckinghamshire, with an estimated $15 million to his name. But to millions, he's priceless. And if you think that's a wild ride, wait till you see what happened to Rodney. John Challis as Boise. That laugh, that smirk, that slick suit. Boise wasn't just Del Boy's rival. He was a walking punchline with a luxury car and a snobby sneer. But the man behind the bravado, John Challis, lived a life far more dramatic than his on-screen persona ever hinted. He joined the show at 39, and within moments, Boise became a fan favorite. So popular he even got his own spin-off. But off-screen, it wasn't champagne and cigars. Years of heavy drinking caught up with him. In 2016, he was diagnosed with bowel cancer, and it was brutal. Challis fought like hell. He even wrote a best-selling memoir, Boise's Book, packed with wit and wisdom. But cancer came back, this time spreading to his lungs. Through it all, he never lost his signature charm. In his final interview, he joked, "If Boise goes, he's going with a laugh." 3 failed marriages, decades of pain, then finally true peace. In 2014, he found love again with Carol Davies. They built a quiet life in Kent, surrounded by fields, laughter, and the echoes of past glory. John passed away in 2021, age 79. Net worth, $3 million, legacy, unforgettable. And if you thought Boise was iconic, wait till you meet Trigger. Slow, simple, and hilariously sincere, but his real life, not so simple at all. Leonard Pierce's granddad, he barely moved, barely spoke. But somehow, Granddad became the beating heart of Only Fools and Horses. Leonard Pierce as Granddad, with his slow shuffle and soulful eyes, made silence hilarious and sadness beautiful. At 66, he took on the role of Granddad in 1981 and turned a background character into a legend. Underneath Del Boy's chaos and Rodney's innocence, Granddad was the quiet anchor. But behind the scenes, Leonard's health was crumbling. Years of theater, travel, and stress had worn him down. By season 4, his heart problems forced him off set. He promised he'd return. He never did. In December 1984, Leonard suffered a second heart attack and died at age 69, just days after filming. He never received an award. He never saw how deeply audiences loved him. All he had left was a tiny flat, fading memories of his late wife Elizabeth, and the legacy of a character who made millions laugh with nothing but a sigh and a look. His net worth? Just $500,000, but his value? Timeless. The BBC turned his death into one of the most moving episodes in British TV history. And every time we see Grandad dozing off in that old armchair, we remember, sometimes, the quietest characters leave the loudest echoes. And his real-life story? Even louder. Wait till you hear this one. Buster Merryfield as Uncle Albert. During the war, just 3 words, and the audience burst into laughter. But the man behind the iconic beard, Buster Merryfield, had lived through more pain than his cheerful eyes ever revealed. He didn't even start acting until his late 50s. Before that, a banker. That's right, a banker turned national treasure. At 65, he joined Only Fools and Horses after the original Grandad passed, and instantly won hearts as the lovable, story-spinning naval vet. But when the cameras stopped rolling, life hit hard. In 1992, Buster lost his wife Nella to cancer. They'd been married over 40 years. Her death shattered him. Depression followed. His health spiraled. And then came the cruelest blow, brain cancer. Still, Buster kept going, writing a memoir, performing on stage, and smiling for fans who adored him. "I'm not afraid of dying," he said once. "I'm only afraid of not making people laugh anymore." He passed away peacefully in 1999 at age 78, leaving behind a legacy far greater than his modest $1.2 million net worth. Every time we hear during the war, we still pause, smile, and feel like Uncle Albert is right there with us. Nicholas Lyndhurst as Rodney Trotter. He was the tall, awkward dreamer with puppy dog eyes, the perfect opposite to Del Boy's swagger. But while Rodney kept falling for Del's dodgy schemes on screen, actor Nicholas Lyndhurst was fighting real-life battles even tragedy couldn't script. At just 20, he lit up British TV as the lovable younger Trotter in 1981. The chemistry with David Jason was lightning in a bottle. But behind the laughs, Lyndhurst's world was quietly unraveling. In 1986, he lost his first child. In 1995, his marriage crumbled. And then, the unthinkable, in 20 but 20, his only son Archie died suddenly at age 19. It shattered him. He stepped away from the spotlight, choosing silence over stardom. Diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2023, Lyndhurst now lives a quiet life by the sea with wife Lucy. "I still miss them every day," he said in a rare interview. "But I carry their laughter with me." Now 64, he mentors young actors, lends his voice to select projects, and treasures privacy like gold. His net worth? Around $5 million. But ask any fan, Rodney was never about money. He was about heart. And speaking of heart, Uncle Albert had more stories than all the Trotters combined. But how much of it was true? Or during the war? Roger Lloyd Pack as Colin Trigger. He called Rodney Dave for over 2 decades and never once broke character. Trigger was slow, sincere, and side-splittingly funny. But Roger Lloyd Pack, the man behind the mop and monotone voice, was fighting demons far darker than anyone imagined. At 37, Roger stepped into the role that would define British comedy. With a blank stare and perfect timing, he turned simplicity into brilliance. But when the laughter stopped, real life wasn't so kind. Following a messy divorce in 2000, loneliness sank in, and Roger turned to alcohol. "I made millions laugh," he said once, "but I couldn't fix myself." In 2012, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Even then, he kept working. Harry Potter, Vicar of Dibley, Shakespeare stage roles, fighting pain with performance. But it wore him down. He spent his final days not in fame, but in quiet reflection with his children, including actress Emily Lloyd. No red carpets, no spotlight, just peace. Roger passed away in 2014 at age 69. Net worth, $2.5 million. But he left us much more. Trigger's loyalty, innocence, and accidental wisdom still echo every time we hear, "All right, Dave?" And speaking of pubs and punchlines, remember Mike the landlord? Kenneth MacDonald as Mike Fisher. He served warm beer, cold chips, and had a front row seat to every one of Del Boy's disasters. Mike the landlord wasn't just a background character. He was the heart of the Nag's Head, where the show's wildest moments were poured by the pint. But Kenneth MacDonald, the man behind the bar, was pouring from an empty glass. At 33, he brought grumpy charm and perfect timing to Only Fools and Horses, making the pub feel like home for millions. Off-screen, though, stress quietly chipped away at him. He never stopped working, scripts in hand on vacations, rehearsing lines poolside. Friends said he didn't know how to rest. Behind the laughter was a man silently battling a hereditary heart condition and ignoring the warnings. In 2001, during a family holiday in Hawaii, Kenneth collapsed from a sudden heart attack. He was just 50. The cast was stunned, his family devastated. The BBC wrote his absence into the show as if Mike had just stepped out of the pub and might one day return. His net worth? Around $800,000. But no number could capture how deeply fans loved him. And if you think that's emotional, wait till you hear about Denzel. Paul Barber as Denzel. He was the truck driver with the kind eyes and the worst luck in Peckham, always roped into Del Boy's wildest schemes. But off-screen, Paul Barber's real journey was even more dramatic than Denzel's chaotic deliveries. At 32, Barber brought heart and humor to Only Fools and Horses with his Scouse accent and soulful presence. Fans loved Denzel, but Paul? He was quietly falling apart. In 1998, after over a decade of marriage, his relationship collapsed, leaving him spiraling into depression so deep he once didn't get out of bed for weeks. "I didn't know if I wanted to go on," he later admitted. But just like his on-screen self, Paul didn't give up. In 1997, he stunned audiences with The Full Monty, earning a BAFTA for his role as Horse. It was a comeback story worthy of a film itself. He kept acting, kept smiling, but always carried the scars. Years later, he found peace with his second wife, Nikki, who helped him rediscover faith, family, and joy. Now 74, Barber lives in Essex, battling age-related joint issues, but still performing in indie films, documentaries, and Only Fools fan events. His net worth? $1.5 million. His legacy? Resilience in the face of loss. Tessa Peake Jones as Raquel Turner. She wasn't just Del Boy's girlfriend. Raquel was the moment the chaos softened. When Tessa Peake Jones joined Only Fools and Horses in 1988, she gave the show something it hadn't had before: emotional depth. Audiences saw a new side of Del Boy through her, and fell in love with Raquel just as quickly. But off-screen, Tessa's life took a turn no script could prepare her for. In 2000, while filming a new project, she suffered a severe neck injury that nearly ended her career. For almost 2 years, she couldn't act, couldn't move freely, couldn't even lift her child. Doctors feared she'd never return to stage or screen. But Tessa wasn't done yet. With grit and grace, she clawed her way back. In 2014, she returned in The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher, then won hearts again as the no-nonsense housekeeper in Grantchester. Privately, she built a quiet life with her co-star and eventual husband, David Jason. Yes, Del and Raquel ended up together in real life. Together, they raised a child, far from the spotlight. Now 68, Tessa continues to act selectively, focusing on quality roles and charity work. Her estimated net worth? $2 million. Her true worth? Immeasurable. Gwyneth Strong as Cassandra. Smart, ambitious, and not afraid to challenge Rodney, Cassandra brought fierce energy and emotional realism to Only Fools and Horses. But for Gwyneth Strong, the woman behind the role, real life would test her strength in ways no script ever could. She joined the cast in 1989 at 30 and instantly made Cassandra a symbol of the modern British woman, driven, vulnerable, loving, but no pushover. Her on-screen marriage to Rodney reflected real-world highs and heartbreaks. And heartbreak did come. Off-screen, Gwyneth's world changed forever when her daughter was diagnosed with autism. She quietly stepped back from acting, trading red carpets for therapy sessions, premieres for patients. Years passed. Her once bright career dimmed, but her love as a mother never did. Struggling with insomnia, chronic back pain, and bouts of depression, Gwyneth could have disappeared completely. But instead, she rose stronger. She became a mental health advocate, sharing her story to help others battling in silence. Her 30-year marriage to musician Jesse Birdsall endured it all, quiet, private, and powerful. Now 66, she's returned to the stage and select TV work, often using her voice for charity causes. Her net worth, $1 million. Her legacy? A quiet warrior, and the soul of Cassandra lives on. Sue Holderness as Marlene Boyce. She was loud, sassy, and fabulous. Marlene lit up every scene with just one word, Boycey. But behind the glam, the gossip, and that unforgettable laugh, Sue Holderness was living through a battle that could have ended everything. She joined Only Fools and Horses in 1985 at 35 and quickly became a fan favorite. Marlene wasn't just comic relief. She was a symbol of fiery feminine strength in a sea of blokes and broken dreams. But in 2000, life threw Sue her hardest curveball yet, breast cancer. The diagnosis came suddenly. Surgery, chemo, months of sickness, fear, and silence. She worried she'd never act again. But Sue wasn't done. With the same spirit she brought to Marlene, she fought back, hard. Her comeback? Glorious. She returned to the stage in The Green Green Grass and later shown in Calendar Girls, The Vagina Monologues, and more. Off stage, she became a fierce advocate for cancer awareness, telling women everywhere, "If I'm still alive, I'm gonna laugh louder." Now 75, Sue lives peacefully with her husband Mark and their 2 children, splitting her time between family, theater, and charity work. Her net worth? Around $1.8 million. Patrick Murray as Mickey Pierce. He was the ultimate bragger. Greased hair, Cockney swagger, and a confidence only a true underachiever could fake. Mickey Pierce may have been a joke in Peckham, but for Patrick Murray, the real punchline was his own life, and it wasn't funny. At just 27, Patrick joined Only Fools and Horses and instantly became one of the show's most quotable characters. But fame was a double-edged sword. As the spotlight faded, his world spiraled into addiction, arrests, and isolation. During the 90s, he hit rock bottom. Prison time, broken relationships, and a career that stalled hard. But like many underdogs, Patrick clawed his way back. He married Anong, found love in Thailand, and had a daughter who became his reason to fight. In 2017, he was driving taxis to survive and to fund his family's move to the UK. Then came the cancer, first the lungs, then the liver. Surgery gave him hope. Remission gave him purpose. But in 2023, the disease returned. This time it was terminal. Patrick spent his final years writing his memoir and reconnecting with fans at Only Fools conventions, always flashing that Mickey Pierce grin. On September 29th, the 20th of the 25, he passed away at 68, quietly, bravely, and surrounded by love. His net worth? Just $500,000. But his story? Priceless. And speaking of old-school charm, remember Sid? The cafe, the apron, the grumble? Roy Heather played him to perfection. Roy Heather as Sid. Grumpy, greasy, glorious. Sid, the cafe owner, was the kind of character who'd hand you a cold sausage roll and a life lesson in the same breath. But while fans laughed at his grouchy charm, Roy Heather, the man behind the mug, was living a story few ever heard. He joined Only Fools and Horses in 1982, and though Sid rarely left his counter, he became a cornerstone of the show's world. The cafe was where plans were made, jokes were born, and dreams mostly died. But Roy's own dream was quietly slipping away. After the show, he kept acting, small roles in Doctor Who, The Green Grass, but the phone stopped ringing. His memory began to fade. Then came the diagnosis, late-stage Alzheimer's, a cruel, slow thief. In his final years, Roy lived a quiet life in Hampshire with his wife Sarah Taylor, surrounded by scripts he could no longer recite and memories that drifted further each day. He passed away in 2014 at 79 after a long battle with both cancer and the disease that stole his sharp wit. His net worth? $700,000. His impact? Far greater. Fans placed a tribute on his gravestone, Sid's Cafe, always open for a cuppa and a laugh. And every time we revisit those scenes, Sid's voice still echoes through the greasy air.